This is my current TIG torch setup. It's a CK Worldwide 17 flex head. Although I don't use it very often, I have this push button control zip tie to the side of the torch. You may have seen me use this in a recent video to tack weld some pieces together for some hold down clamps that I needed for the milling machine. I've also done a video that explains how this works with my PrimeWeld TIG225 AC/DC TIG welder. There's essentially two modes, 2T and 4T. The 4T mode being the more complicated one to set up and dial in correctly. It's several different knobs on the torch that set the base current, upslope time, downslope time, and ending current, as well as the welding current. Again, it can be a little bit complicated to set up and get just right for the situation that you're trying to weld in. The complexity of 4T is one of the reasons why most TIG welders use a foot pedal, like this one here that I have up on the table here just for demonstration purposes. The foot pedal allows you to set the welding amperage anywhere from 0 essentially to its max, whatever you maxed out on the welding machine, and anywhere in between. I was recently sent a new way to control the TIG welding current from Hotlights Welding. It's a fingertip welding amperage controller. It's a replacement for the button, the finger button, as well as the foot pedal. It's a bracket that you mount to the side of the TIG torch, and there's a knob on it that takes the place of the infinite adjustability of the foot pedal. I've put contact information for Joe at Hotlights Welding if you're interested in learning a little bit more about this device. He does have them for other welders besides the PrimeWeld TIG225. I'm interested in giving this a good try, so I'm going to remove this trigger button off the side of the torch. Well, this new one mounts to the side of the TIG torch, but I'm trying to figure out just how I want to mount it. I suppose you could put this in a couple of different positions. This is definitely going to change the way that I normally hold my TIG torch. I just need to figure out the different ways I can mount this and maybe just try them out. I really need to have a glove on for me to get a good feeling of where this is going to be comfortable. I'm going to try this a couple of different ways, see what feels most comfortable, and this might be the most obvious way for me because it won't change too much the way that I hold the torch, and I can adjust the amperage then with my thumb. Well, the kit comes with a couple of small zip ties that I will use to mount it to the handle on the torch. It also came with this Velcro cable strap. I'm just going to use it to clean up this end. I'm not removing my TIG button just yet because, quite frankly, I don't know if I'm even going to like this thing. I have some 1/16 inch welding coupons here that I'm going to use for my testing here. Just using some acetone to get it all good and clean. For filler wire, I am using some 1/16 inch ER70S-2. And for tungsten in the torch, I'm using 3/32 inch CK laser tungsten. It's the only tungsten I use on everything. I use it on carbon steel, stainless steel, and aluminum. I find no need with an inverter machine to use any other kind of tungsten. I've put links in the description to where you can get these coupons, filler wire, and this tungsten from Weld Metals Online. And if you use the links in the description, I don't get any money from it, but it can certainly save you 10% off of anything that you buy at Weld Metals Online. I've got the welder set to 125 amps max here, and I'm using 100% argon, about 20 CFH. Well, my initial test here is not holding out to be all that promising. I'm turning the knob, but it's not starting an arc. I'm not sure at this point if there's something wrong with the device or what. But then I remembered it helps to hook up the work clamp to the welding table. So we should be good to go here to tack these pieces together. Well, as you can probably tell, I'm having some issues tacking these two pieces together, and it's because I can't turn the knob enough to get enough amperage and heat quickly into this part to tack them in place. Well, so this time I'm starting with my thumb a little further back on that knob so I can get a little more rotation out of it, and it's giving me something, but it's still not feeling quite the way that I'd like it. Okay, I did not cheat here. This is the very first time that I'm using this device. And probably one of the easiest joints I could use to try this out with is this simple lap joint. I am having a little bit of trouble controlling the heat here. I am so used to using the foot pedal that, it's almost second nature now. Although I'm not hating this, I'm just not feeling it. I'm actually struggling here to maintain at least some semblance of a decent weld joint. And if you're a TIG welder, you can tell this is not great. The heat effective zone is entirely too wide, and I don't have a whole lot of adhesion between the weld and the base material. And you can see just how bad that first lap joint was when I turned this over. So I'm definitely going to need some more practice, so let's try it again. This time I'm going to try to use my index finger and see if I might have a little bit more control over the amperage with that. And nothing about that felt good, so I'm going to switch my hand position again and use the thumb. This is not the way I normally hold my TIG torch, so this is taking quite a bit of relearning. If you use one of these torch control, amperage control devices, whether this one or somebody else's, or you just use the trigger button, leave me a comment. Let me know what you think about the one that you're using, whether or not I should give it a try, or do you think I should just stick to the foot pedal? Well, it started out okay, but then near the end there, I just became more and more uncomfortable holding the TIG torch that way, and you can see it in the weld. Well, I went ahead and tacked another coupon to the two pieces that we lap jointed. We'll try a fillet weld here. I'm going back to using my index finger, and we'll see if I can try and make this feel a little more comfortable. I didn't really notice it at the time, but I can see it here in playing back this video that my torch angle is just way off. And I think that's just because of this odd way that I have to hold this torch in order to use the amperage dial. And I would say that this fillet weld isn't going great at all. Man, that's just difficult. I realize I'm not the best welder in the world, but I have to prove to myself that something's not crazy here. So I've temporarily put my foot pedal plugged back into the welder, and I'm going to weld these two coupons together using the foot pedal and see what the difference is. Well, that little run was terrible. Well, that's a little bit better. Again, not the best welds in the world. I'm not the best welder in the world, but I can stick metal together. And you know, the only way that you get better at this is just to practice, practice, practice. So I'm going to run this last lap joint here with the foot pedal, and then we'll switch back to the dial and see how it goes. Well, I'd say that one's a lot better. That's respectable. Yeah, maybe still a little bit too hot, but practice, practice, practice. I have a couple of fresh coupons here, and I've switched the amperage control back to the knob. I'm still not really comfortable with the position that this knob is in. It is just so hard to control the heat, and it's causing me to move the torch around too much. I think I'm going to try rotating this down to the side and see if that might work a little bit better for me. Okay, this is actually a little more comfortable, surprisingly so. I feel like I have better control on the knob, which gives me a little better control on the heat input here. I think also when the knob was turned the other direction, as I was moving it up and down, it was causing pressure on the torch, and it was making that distance between the tip of the tungsten and the workpiece inconsistent. It was going up and down. I don't see that same movement in my hand here on the video. Well, those are no stack of dimes, but I did control the heat input a lot better this time around. I'm starting to get a little bit more comfortable using the knob when it's on its side versus on the top. It is taking some getting used to having the torch in my hand differently than what I usually do, but I am starting to get more comfortable with it this way. I'll run a few more beads here just to see how this continues to perform. Well, one significant change I did make here is I cranked the welder up to max. And that was primarily so that I could have less movement with the dial in order to increase heat input. I felt like when it was down at the 125 amp point, which is what I would normally have this set for this thin of metal, it was easy for me to stomp my foot all the way down if I needed to, but not so easy to turn this dial 360 degrees. But with it up all the way, I only need to run the dial halfway to get the same kind of heat input that I'd be expecting to use my foot with. Well, and since we're practicing, might as well have a little bit of fun here. I've got some aluminum coupons, and we'll try a little outside corner joint. And while I'm at it, I went ahead and rotated the knob again to the top position just to see if I can start to feel a little more comfortable with it.
Dip, dip, dip.
Well, besides dipping my tungsten there for a second, that's not too bad. That's the other thing I like about laser tungsten. I dipped it for a second, but it doesn't ruin the tip completely. And although I should go over and get it reground, it's not the end of the world. Well, here are my initial impressions. I understand that Hotlights Welding sells this for about $100. And $100 isn't really a bad price, but I will say that I think aesthetically, maybe this could use a little bit of improvement. It's a bit rough around the edges, but it does work. It does do what it's promised to do. I'm a little concerned about how the wires are hanging off of it and whether or not it would put up with a lot of use or abuse. I had trouble really coming up with a good grip to use this with, so I think it will take certainly some getting used to. I think I'm going to play around with the position of this knob. I know with it on top like this, every time I roll it forward and back, you can see the torch moving up and down. And I think I need to work on that, maybe rotate it around again, use it from the side, and see if I can get a little bit more used to it. So I think what I'm going to do now is put the cameras away, readjust this, and just run some beads and do a little more practice and see if I can get more comfortable with this. Well, as you can see here, I cleaned it up, the install of this up a little bit. I rotated the knob so it is pointing up now, and I've secured it with the wire ties. I also moved it back some, so now I'm holding on to the rear of the torch. I did this so I could get a better straight up and down angle with the tungsten to my workpiece while still being able to comfortably manipulate the amperage control knob. I did spend about an hour just running beads on some aluminum and carbon steel. Some of these are better than others. None of them are great. There's no stacks of dimes here, but I am getting more comfortable with using this amperage control knob in its current configuration. Well, to sum up the pros and cons, the pros, it does what it's promised to do. It does make it so you can control the amperage infinitely from 0 to max using a knob right on the torch. It is reasonably priced for what you get. I think it could use a little bit of aesthetic refinement. Cons, I think that the wires here coming out of the dial might be a little bit fragile, and I'd be worried about how well that they would hold up with constant abuse. If I had to guess, it's probably a 25-foot control lead on this. I think my torch length is only 12 foot, so I had to wind it up at the end. So if I ever do get longer torch leads, I certainly won't have to worry about this being too short. And overall, I give this a thumbs up. I'm going to leave it on the torch, and I'm going to use it. I'm going to try to use it rather than the foot pedal for a while just to get better at using it. Well, I think that's it for this video. I certainly hope you enjoyed this review of this TIG amperage control. As always, those thumbs up are greatly appreciated. It really does help out with the YouTube analytics. And if you're not a subscriber, please hit that subscribe button. Don't forget the bell icon so you get notified whenever I'm dropping a new video. And that's it. We'll see you on the next one. Thanks for watching.